43 is your time. Denver 7's Black History Month coverage concludes with a man who was an inspiration to so many African Americans, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
As Denver 7's Micah Smith explains, Dr. King spent plenty of time right here in the Mile High City.
Long before Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s statue sat high on a pedestal in City Park, the man himself moved humbly through Denver, providing fuel to a fight for freedom that was well underway.
Dr. King came to New Hope in 1956 during the Montgomery bus boycott.
Vern Howard, the chairman of Denver's annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day Parade, says during a time when black people were treated as second-class citizens, Dr. King came to town to help local activists confront injustices.
He actually heard the very first time his favorite song that became his battle song. And that song is, "If I can help somebody, then my living shall not be in vain." The last time Dr. King was in Denver, he spoke over at DU. And that was on May 17th of 1967. They burned crosses, turned over cars.
It was a reminder to both of these local activists, Reverend James Peters and Bishop Asen Phillips, that hostility for the civil rights struggle wasn't limited to southern states.
The Klan said, "We're going to kill you." They called my house and threatened the kids and all that kind of thing. That happened in Denver.
When I got to Denver, I thought I had reached paradise. I saw black folk with green grass and 5 Points. I thought it was nirvana. Then I found out here in Colorado, black folk couldn't live past High Street.
Both men would lead local churches and the civil rights movement here in Denver, with their stories start in the Deep South, Peters in D.C. and Phillips in Mississippi.
I had a traumatic experience. One of my uncles was tarred and feathered and drove down the street and hanged it. So
Phillips left Mississippi and eventually came to Denver in the 1950s, where he began organizing local demonstrations. And on a trip to Omaha, Nebraska in 1958, Phillips met the man who would lead the national movement.
His name was Martin Luther King Jr. I didn't really know then how important he really was.
Around the same time, Reverend Peters also met Dr. King.
The first time I got to hear him was at the Vermont Avenue Baptist Church in Washington, D.C., where he was just spellbinding.
Peters, who is known for leading New Hope Baptist Church for decades, was a follower of Dr. King's, becoming one of Dr. King's lieutenants in the movement, even giving a speech at the infamous 16th Street Baptist Church.
But what they printed was just an excerpt from my speech. "Segregation is like pregnancy," Reverend James Peters said. The more it shows, the sooner you'll be delivered.
Peters would work with Dr. King more than 50 times, and Phillips would work with him many times as well. Both marched with him in Selma, Alabama.
The only person that actually died from Colorado in the march was not a black person, but was a Jew. They walked together with us in our struggle.
Now in their 80s, Phillips and Peters remember their friend Dr. King fondly. These two and many others fought hard to make his birthday a holiday in our Colorado and to create the parade, which Vern Howard helped grow to 85,000 participants just this last year. And these men are still in the fight for equality.
When someone has a dream that you can afford to buy into, it becomes your own passion. You can't retire from passion. You can't retire from purpose.
With this Mississippi, Kansas City, or Denver, Colorado, segregation is just real. And to be honest with you, it's still real today.
Denver's a great city, and we've come a long way. Reverend Phillips is right. We've come a long way, but we still have some distance to go.
In Denver, Micah Smith, Denver 7.
So captivating when he spoke. This was the 4th story in our Black History Month coverage. You can watch Micah's other stories on Black Barbecue, Daddy Bruce Randolph, and Black Cowboys on the Denver 7 app for your streaming device. They are all fantastic.
Yeah, some really incredible stories she's